So, how would one describe Kyokushin Karate? Founded in 1964 by Sosai Oyama Masutatsu, Kyokushin is predominantly a stand-up, full-contact, and self-defense-based style of martial art. It is a style of Japanese karate, but you can trace a lot of its roots to the hard linear techniques of Shotokan, combined with the many circular movements found in Goju Ryu. There are also elements of judo and kabuto, or weapons training, which makes Kyokushin a very powerful and effective combination of techniques. It also has continued to rise in popularity and has over 12 million practitioners all over the world. The founder of Kyokushin Karate is Masutatsu Oyama, often referred to as Masoyama. He was born on July 27, 1923 in what would later be South Korea. When he was still very young, he was sent to Manchuria, China to live on his sister's farm. Now, Oyama was first introduced to the martial arts at the age of 9 when one of the farmers began teaching him Chinese Kempo, called 18 Hands. Now, the 18 Hands is very important in the history of martial arts. It was one of the foundations and is often found in the roots of many arts, including my own art of American Kempo Karate. At the age of 12, Oyama returned back to Korea and continued his training, but this time in Korean Kempo. Now, this was only the beginning of the multiple building blocks Oyama would use to develop his own system. In 1938, at the age of 15, Oyama traveled to Japan with his brother to enlist in the Japanese Imperial Army Aviation School. While he was there, he continued his training in karate, adding judo and boxing into his regimen. It was very clear that young Oyama was finding his way in the martial arts, constantly adding more and more skills to his arsenal. When World War II ended in 1945, Oyama left the aviation school and settled down in Tokyo, and in 1946 enrolled in Waseda University School of Education, and he pursued a study in sports science. Oyama pressed forward in his martial arts training, seeking out a Shotokan school run by Jigo Funakoshi, son of Gichin Funakoshi, who is the grandmaster and founder of the art, and then later he trained under Gichin Funakoshi himself. Oyama showed great skill and prowess and added yet another discipline, that of Goju Ryu, founded by Chojin Miyagi. After several more years of training, Masoyama had proven himself to be a highly skilled and formidable fighter. In his lifetime, he achieved the ranks of 4th Dan in Kodokan Judo, 4th Dan in Shotokan Karate, 7th Dan in Goju Ryu Karate, and eventually 10th Dan as the founder of the art he would later form, Kyokushin Karate. As skilled and disciplined as Oyama became, the war had left him unsettled, and he was noted for often getting into fights with US military police. He once said in a television interview, "I lost many friends during the war. The very morning of their departure as kamikaze pilots, we ate breakfast together, and in the evening their seats were empty. After the war ended, I was angry, so I fought as many US military as I could until my portrait was all over the police station." Masoyama sought a way to ground himself, and having become interested in the Samurai Bushido Code and what it represented, he had committed himself to spending 3 years in isolation to focus entirely on his training. He built a small shack in Mount Minobu in Japan, and there he trained and lived. At one point, a student had joined him, but this was not a recreational retreat nor a weekend seminar. It was a harsh outdoor workout, and there were no modern conveniences. Nature was the dojo. He embodied a lot of what you see in martial arts films, glamorized training out in the wilderness and the waterfalls, becoming one with nature, and in pure isolation. However, this wasn't Hollywood, and this wasn't glamorous. It was pure, hardcore training. Masoyama kept a very strict regimen, training at least 12 hours a day, no days off, under cold waterfalls, breaking stones and logs, and even using trees as a makiwara. Now, this was a bit overwhelming for a student who, after about 6 months, snuck away in the night, leaving Oyama to train in solitude. Oyama was dedicated to becoming one of the hardest and best fighters in the world. Unfortunately, after 14 months, his sponsor was unable to continue to offer support, and Oyama returned back to civilization. He came back a hardened martial artist, winning competitions and earning respect, although he felt unresolved as he had not yet completed his 3-year commitment in the mountains. At this point in his life, he knew that he wanted to dedicate himself to the martial arts, so on his own, he took off again for the mountains, where he would spend another 18 months of this rigorous routine, complete solitude, out in nature, 12 hours a day. Masoyama was a different man this time when he returned. He was confident, powerful, and ready to show the world his craft. In 1950, Masoyama began to test and prove his power. In one of his more notable claims to fame, Oyama demonstrated his skill by fighting live bulls with his bare hands. he would reportedly knock them out with single strikes, and he is believed to have killed maybe 3 instantly, and wrestling others down to the ground and chopping their horns off with his bare hands. Now, I have seen some conflicting information in my research, and some people claim they weren't really bulls, but just steer that he wrestled down. Honestly, is that even less impressive if it is true? I mean, how many people do you know who could do that? In addition to battling bulls, he took on any challenger who wished to fight him. He toured North America, giving live demonstrations and exhibitions, and even live on television. He won every single challenge, most fights lasting only a matter of seconds, and most of his opponents he knocked out with a single blow. His power was undisputable. It was even said that if you were to block one of his strikes, he would still break your arm, and if you didn't block, well, the result was often worse. This iron fortitude and exhibition of his skills earned Oyama the nickname God Hand. And as if the skill and power he showed wasn't enough, Oyama also wanted to lead the example of endurance. He introduced the world to one of the most grueling tests in the martial arts, the 100-man kumite. This was a bare-knuckle battle lasting 100 consecutive rounds, with each round lasting 1.5 to 2 minutes. And we're talking full contact, no pads, no breaks. So when an opponent was knocked out or time ran out, another opponent immediately jumped in. Now, in many cases, the fighter attempting the challenge would see the same opponents multiple times because there weren't always 100 people available. But the big difference is those people had a chance to rest and the challenger would not. So this was 100 non-stop rounds of bare-knuckle, full-contact fighting. Masoyama not only completed this challenge, but then he did it 3 days in a row, completing 300 undefeated rounds. It's also been said that he was up for a 4th day, but no one wished to challenge him any further. Oyama would go on to establish Kyokushin as one of the leading and toughest karate systems in the world. So, what does the name Kyokushin mean? Founded officially in 1964, the full official name of the art is Kokusai Karate Do Renmei Kyokushin Kaikan, which I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly, but it loosely translates to International Karate Organization Kyokushin Kaiken. In simpler terms, the art is usually referred to as Kyokushin Kai, which means Ultimate Truth Society, or even more common, just Kyokushin, Ultimate Truth. The kanji for this name is a prominent emblem of the art. Masoyama held a very high regard for the samurai Miyamoto Musashi and his Book of the Five Rings. As a result, Oyama wanted the calligraphy of the kanji to resemble a sheathed sword in honor of Musashi. The calligraphy was designed by Oyama's close friend, Sensei Haramotoki. This official icon of Kyokushin is written in blue and embroidered on the uniform's left side of the chest. Another distinct symbol representative of the art of Kyokushin is the kanku. This is an emblem based on the kankudai kata, which also means viewing the sky or raising sun. In this kata, the hands are raised to scan the sky and they form the symbol. The points in the kanku represent the fingers and symbolize ultimate peaks. The thicker sections of the right and left of the image are the wrists of the hands, and they signify power, and the center represents depth and infinity. The entire emblem is encircled, standing for circular activity and continuity. So the official uniform of Kyokushin is a solid white gi with the embroidered blue kanji of the name on the left side of the chest and the red badge of the kanku stitched on the left sleeve. Now, we're going to take a more detailed look at the Kyokushin curriculum in the next episode, but let's quickly explore the fundamentals. The foundation of the curriculum is built on 3 components, sometimes called the 3 Ks, based on their Japanese names. These components are Kihon, Kata, and Kumite. Kihon generally means basics, and they are the fundamental movements and strikes. Blocks, punches, kicks, posture, breathing practices, throws, and body movement all fall under Kihon. They are the root and foundation of practice. If a student does not develop strong basics, then the rest of the training will be unreliable. Kata. Kata is short for the word katachi, which translates to form, shape, or pattern. Most katas are performed individually and are composed of basics, or kihon, in a sequence of pre-choreographed motions. By practicing basics and sequences repeatedly, it helps students to develop polished technique and also to help in memorization and understanding the relationship of the movements. Many martial arts have katas for a similar purpose. And in Kyokushin, katas are actually organized into 2 main categories, Northern style and Southern style. Oyama formed the Northern style katas to draw from influences he learned in Shotokan Karate, while the Southern style draws from his experience in Goju Ryu. Then we have Kumite. Kumite means fighting, or basically freestyle sparring. Now this is where skills built by the student during Kihon and Kata training are translated into real fighting skills and application. Now, although head protection is sometimes used and face punching is restricted, Kyokushin Kumite is usually unpadded and full contact fighting. In competition, opponents deliver heavy blows and powerful kicks in an attempt to submit or knock out their opponent. Now, Kihon, Kata, and Kumite are terms also found in other styles of karate, but in the next episode, we're going to break down the Kyokushin training a little bit more to get a better idea of the curriculum. Now, this episode would not be complete if I didn't talk about os. Such a short, simple sound, yet with it comes a heavy and well-respected meaning. The word is a combination of two other Japanese words, oshi, which means push, and shinobu, which means endure. Kyokushin is an incredibly demanding art. It's very taxing on the body, it tests the spirits of the practitioner, and it represents one of the highest forms of discipline, technique, and commitment. So the sentiment behind os means to push oneself to the limit of ability and then under pressure, push past it and endure. In Kyokushin training, os carries many uses. It is used for all greetings and it replaces many words such as hello, goodbye, yes sir, yes ma'am, or in any instance in which you are given a command and you reply in agreement. When you arrive at the dojo and you bow, you say os. When you bow out at the end of the class, you say os. Your sensei gives you a command, you respond with os. When you perform a technique, you call out aloud os. If you receive a well-placed blow from an opponent in Kumite, you credit them with respect and you say os. Os is everything in Kyokushin. It is dedication and determination. It is respect and appreciation. It is patience and perseverance, and it is a reminder for all Kyokushin students to push themselves and endure. So, if you could encapsulate the spirit of the art of Kyokushin into a single word or sentiment, os is that word. Now, a word of caution. Os is a signature tradition of Kyokushin, and its usage is well respected. But with that being said, you should also be aware that outside of a Kyokushin dojo, that might not always be the case. In Japanese culture, os is also sometimes taken as a contraction of Ohayo gozaimasu, which generally means good morning. However, its usage and inflection can change on context, and it's often considered slang or even possibly crude. So for example, in English, when you meet somebody of higher rank or in a formal environment, or someone who's like a senior to you, you would say something along the lines of, hello, it's a pleasure to meet you. Well, os in this context would be like saying, oh hey man, what's up? It can come across as less respectful, sometimes crude, maybe even a little uneducated. So while os carries a mark of respect in the Kyokushin dojo, don't assume it is always the case everywhere else. Some dojos and other arts use os in a similar manner, while others might find it offensive. So basically, do not use it in a dojo unless you know ahead of time if it is appreciated or not. Oyama also established the International Karate Organization. Throughout his lifetime, Masoyama continued to spread his craft, and Kyokushin began to plant the seeds across the world. He would hand-pick instructors, and he would send them to new countries and territories, where they would then draw a crowd and they would perform demonstrations out in public, drum up excitement, and then spread word of mouth. Once interest rose, they would establish a school. As a result, Kyokushin now has 12 million practitioners or more in thousands of dojos spread across over 100 countries in the world. Masoyama never quit on his dedication. Remaining the true warrior that he was, he continued to push and endure even as he aged and health problems developed. In his later years, he was diagnosed with osteoarthritis, a joint disease that breaks down cartilage and bone. Now, despite this normally being a debilitating disease and condition, Oyama did not let it stop him, and he continued his practice to demonstrate his craft, even still breaking wood and bricks and blocks and stones. In his final years, and despite never having been a smoker, Masoyama developed lung cancer. On April 26, 1994, at the age of 70, Masutatsu Oyama passed away. While his absence is heavily felt, he left behind a legacy of a man who became one of the best karatekas in the world and creating a system of martial arts that pushes boundaries, develops character, cultivates respect, and it retains the true Bushido spirit. He was a pioneer in the martial arts, and Kyokushin is now one of the leading systems of karate in the world. For more information on Masoyama and Kyokushin, and to get a copy of Miyamoto Musashi's Book of the Five Rings, I have included some links below in the description. And that concludes today's video. I would also like to extend a giant and sincere thank you to one of our most loyal viewers, Sensei Juan Ferentino Iorio from Melbourne, Australia, for his generous help and time in researching this project. Your contribution and friendship is greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoyed this video looking on the origin of Kyokushin. In the next episode of this three-part series, we're going to explore Kyokushin training, highlight the curriculum, and find out what it takes to become a black belt in the art. Thank you so much for watching. So to why I chose who I chose. Practitioners out there, I know there's a whole list of different high-level practitioners and Shihans and people we could talk about, and they could definitely be future topics. If you have suggestions of who Kurosaki. Besides being one of the fiercest fighters in Kyokushin, Kenji Kurosaki has another important and sometimes overlooked distinction in the art. He was integral in the establishment of Kyokushin, and many of our viewers have recommended looking into him, sometimes referring to him as Kyokushin's other founder. He was born just outside Tokyo on March 15, 1930. In 1951, he decided to train in the martial arts and he joined a Goju-ryu school. While there, he met his close friend and training partner, Masoyama. And as we saw in this history video, Masoyama spent a considerable amount of time in both Shotokan and Goju-ryu, which are the parent arts of Kyokushin. In 1953, Oyama decided to leave and create his own system, and Kurosaki went with him to help him establish it. It is said that Kurosaki tended to take more of a behind-the-scenes role, such as public relations for the art, and he wasn't always forefront. And while he isn't always known for his contribution to the art, but he is definitely known and had the reputation of being one of the most fiercest fighters that Kyokushin had to offer. In 1964, Muay Thai practitioners challenged Masoyama to choose 3 of his men to fight up against 3 of their men. Masoyama accepted the challenge, and Kurosaki was one of the 3 fighters put forward. As most people will agree, Muay Thai is not an art to underestimate. The fights were intense, and you can see in the footage of the bout that Kurosaki definitely held his own in the battle. In the end of the match, he caught a blow that took him to the ground. Even in defeat, he upheld his passion for his training and pushed forward and set up a future for himself as a trainer. In 1976, as a result of political difference in the direction where Kyokushin was going, he left the organization and he started his own gym known as the Kurosaki DOJO. During his career in the martial arts, Kurosaki trained and unleashed several great kickboxing champions and cemented himself in the history as a pillar of excellence in the martial arts and in the history and legacy of Kyokushin. Welcome to the History of Kyokushin, a 3-part series on one of the toughest karate systems out there. Last week was the first episode, and we talked about Sosai Masutatsu Oyama and his dedication to training and how he formed the art of Kyokushin. If you have not seen that video yet, I highly recommend that you watch that one first, as it will lay out a stronger foundation for what we'll cover today. In this episode, we're going to explore the training of the art, belt ranks, techniques, etiquette, and testing requirements in part 2 of the History of Kyokushin. Now, just a disclaimer, Japanese is not my native language, so I do apologize if I butcher any names. I'm going to do my best. So to summarize the previous video, we explored the background of Masutatsu Oyama, the founder of Kyokushin. Oyama, born in Korea, lived on his sister's farm in Manchuria, China, where he was introduced to Chinese Kempo. Later, upon moving back to Korea, he continued to train in Korean Kempo. During World War II, Oyama had been part of the Imperial Japanese Army Aviation School. Through his young adulthood, he studied judo, boxing, Shotokan karate, and Goju-ryu karate. He also found great inspiration from the Bushido Samurai Code and admired the spirit of the warrior. He followed the ideals from his favorite book, The Book of the Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi, and he spent a collective 32 months training in solitude in the Japanese mountains. When he returned to civilization, he came back a hardened fighter and an incredible martial artist. He demonstrated his combat skills by fighting and defeating live bulls and establishing the 100-man kumite, in which a challenger takes on 100 consecutive rounds of bare-knuckle, full-contact sparring. Oyama completed the challenge 3 times, defeating 300 men over the course of 3 consecutive days. He founded the art of Kyokushin, which translates to ultimate truth. Kyokushin is one of the most influential styles of full-contact karate, especially in competition. Most tournaments are unpadded and allow full-contact punches and kicks to the body. Now, strikes to the face usually aren't allowed by hand, but kicks to the head often are, and have resulted in some impressive techniques and knockouts. First, let's talk about arrival to the dojo. Kyokushin embodies a very strong spirit of discipline and respect, and their customs should be observed when visiting a Kyokushin dojo. All students are expected to bow in upon entering the school, and once again while exiting. Bowing is performed facing the front of the dojo, where there usually hangs the portrait of Sosai Masutatsu Oyama. The student then bows towards the direction of others. In the previous episode, we talked about the tradition of os, a word used to represent the spirit of the art. It is a combination of the words oshi, which means push, and shinobu, which means endure. In essence, the sentiment behind it means to push oneself to the limit and endure going past it. All greetings are observed by os, so the student is to deliver the word when bowing towards teachers and fellow classmates. During class, when given a command or instructions by a teacher, os is also used to acknowledge and agree. This is very similar to the traditional ai used in many Japanese arts. So in Kyokushin, ai-sensei or yes-sensei is replaced with os. Kyokushin dojos typically observe formal and proper behavior, so this means you should act appropriately while you're in a dojo and show respect to senior students and teachers. Students of lower ranks may address each other by names. However, this is not appropriate practice with senior students or instructors. When you're addressing a senior, you should address them according to their official title or rank, followed by their first name. Many Japanese schools have what's called the dojo-kun posted on the wall. Now these are the codes of conduct and rules expected in the dojo. In Kyokushin, the dojo-kun is recited at the end of each class. Students lined up by rank, they kneel down with their eyes closed, and the senior student recites the code out loud for the class. As the senior student reads it, the class will follow and repeat it word for word. We will train our hearts and bodies for a firm, unshaken spirit. We will pursue the true meaning of the martial way so that in time our senses may be alert. With true vigor, we will seek to cultivate a spirit of self-denial. We will observe the rules of courtesy, respect our superiors, and refrain from violence. We will follow our religious principles and never forget the true virtue of humility. We will look upwards to wisdom and strength, not seeking other desires. All our lives, through the discipline of karate, we will seek to fulfill the true meaning of the Kyokushin way. Like most Japanese martial arts, student ranks are represented by colored belts. Now, as we explored in the previous video, how many belts are there in karate, we looked at the difference of ranking systems across many systems of martial arts. The concept of colored belt ranks was first established by Jigoro Kano, the founder of Judo, and many arts followed suit with their own. Now, what we learned is each discipline has their own set of colors and belt ranks, each meaning something completely significant and different to that art. And in this respect, Kyokushin is no exception. Consistency is something that's also an issue in some styles, with belt order and customs changing wildly from one school to the next. Now, at least in Kyokushin, the order is generally consistent between schools with some possible minor variations. Similar to the other arts, colored belt ranks are called Q ranks, and they count down as the student approaches black belt. The different ranks of black belts are called Dan ranks, and they progress higher as the student achieves higher levels of mastery. In Kyokushin, there are 10 Q ranks and 10 Dan ranks. The first belt a student receives is the white belt. Now, in many martial arts, the white belt is considered the first Q rank, but in others, such as Kyokushin, it is called Mukyu, which means ungraded. This is an entry-level belt and requires no skill or work to acquire it, and it is not included in the 10 Q ranks. The white color of the belt reflects this, as the canvas is clean and the student has not yet had any experience in the art, so it stands for a level of purity and potential. The first official colored belt is the orange belt. Now, when Masayama first established Kyokushin, this belt was originally red. Now, the color red in martial arts is a little bit of a wild card. In some arts, the red belt is a lower grade belt, while in others, it is the color and symbol of mastery. So in Kempo and some other arts, red stripes are applied to black belts to denote Dan ranks as they increase. In an art like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the red belt is the highest achievable rank, even above black belt. It is believed that due to this discrepancy that Masayama changed the red to orange as to avoid confusion. Today, most traditional Kyokushin schools observe the orange belt, while some still might use the red. The meaning behind the color stands for a level of stability. Orange or red symbolizes the color of soil and earth, building the foundation from which the seeds of basics can be planted, cultivated, and grown upon. The blue belt represents water and a level of fluidity. Water is free-flowing and it can move and change based on its environment. So too should the student at this level displaying a level of fluidity and adaptability. The student at this point in time learns to flow within the context of what they have learned. The yellow belt represents a level of assertion. By now, the student has been training hard and should have developed a strong skill set of basics and physical ability. Now, as with most arts, Kyokushin students are not only expected to achieve physical strength, but they're also expected to develop mental fortitude as well. At yellow belt, the student is entering a psychological phase of training, understanding and dissecting what they have previously learned, and they are now learning to analyze new information. When the student achieves their green belt, they are entering the first level of senior ranked belts. This belt represents a level of emotion and sensitivity, and the student is expected to be aware and embrace the concepts of benevolence and compassion. It was once said that Oyama would declare that strength without justice is violence, also justice without strength is impotence. Mastery of the basics, strength, and speed are an expected combination at this level. Now, as with most arts, the brown belt is a senior rank and typically the last colored belt rank. In Kyokushin, the brown belt signifies a level of practicality. A student should be adept in their own training. They should be strong, fast, and they should be comfortable in the performance of what they previously learned, and they also understand not to abuse their strength and power, but rather to guide, mentor, and look after the junior ranks. The black belt, synonymous across the martial arts as a rank of expert. Now, I think we've all heard the expression that a black belt is simply a white belt and never quit. Now, while it sounds easy to say, it is certainly true. The black belt represents a several-year-long journey and hard work, and in Kyokushin this is no different. The black color represents strength, as the color black is too strongly pigmented and not easily overcome by other colors. So this philosophical notion applies to the student in that at this level their skills should have reached a level of proficiency and that lower colored belt ranks should not be able to overcome them. Once the student obtains their black belt or first dan, they will spend a lifetime progressing, each additional dan grouped by a single gold stripe. Kohai. This is a term used to refer to the colored belt ranks or Q ranks. Now, generally, Kohai implies a junior student, especially in comparison to another. If two students have the same rank, then the younger one is generally referred to as the Kohai. Now, an important note is that this is not a title used to address someone. The word Kohai is used strictly in the context of generalization, such as comparing, a student to a senior rank. It is considered inappropriate to address someone personally as Kohai. Senpai. Senpai means senior student. Now, this term is used in many dojos of many different arts, and the senpai is usually the senior ranking student and often the mentor to the lower ranks. Now, in some styles, it can refer to brown belts or may even refer to someone senior in age. In the context of Kyokushin, however, it is reserved to those who have achieved their first and second dan black belt ranks. Sensei. Now, this is a term that pretty much everyone knows. It simply means teacher in the literal translation. And it's sometimes used in Japan as other teachers, not necessarily in the martial arts. In Kyokushin, sensei is a title applied to third and fourth dan black belt ranks. Shihan, or master teacher. The title of Shihan is typically bestowed upon those who have reached a level of mastery and usually lead a school or even multiple schools. In Kyokushin, a fifth dan rank and upwards is awarded the title of Shihan. Now, there are also some other titles that are much less common, but you may hear them in the context of Kyokushin. Kancho, in which the word kan means building or hall, and the word cho means head or the top. So kancho literally means head of the hall or head of the training hall. Kaicho is similar, except that kan is replaced with kai, which means society or association. Therefore, kaicho means the head of an association. Hanshi translates roughly to gentleman, scholar, warrior, and while it may not be a widely utilized term in Kyokushin, when it is usually applied to those with an extremely high ranking title, usually 7th dan and upwards. Finally, the term sosai. This is generally to refer to the president or director general, and no one in Kyokushin or its derivatives have really utilized it, and it seems to be an honorary and prestigious title applied to Sosai Matsutatsu Oyama for his extraordinary contribution to the martial arts. The closest equivalent to this title may be considered Grand Master, that is sometimes used in other arts for the founder or the highest ranking masters. Training in Kyokushin is divided into 3 main classifications, or the 3 Ks: Kihon, Kata, and Kumite. Kihon is a Japanese term that means basics. These are the fundamental concepts of the material. So all punches, kicks, blocks, steps, throws, posture, and movements are all part of basic training. Without these strong basics, the rest of the student's training becomes compromised. Kyokushin dojos also use what is called Ito Gaiko. Now this refers to training techniques in motion. Ito Gaiko is executed with combining some of the basics into a sequence. Now this is used to test and judge the student's ability to combine and craft concepts as well as effectively determine the strength of their technique. So perhaps a student can deliver a great punch from a stationary position, but can they deliver the same punch with the same energy and power and speed while moving and in combination with other techniques? That is the Ito Gaiko. The Kihon portion of the curriculum is always performed at the beginning of class. So after bowing in, the class will begin a regimen of basics and practice before getting into the main lesson of the day. This consistent repetition helps these movements become natural and fluent. Kata is the second categorization of Kyokushin training. Kata is an abbreviation of the word katachi, which means shape, form, or pattern. So in Kyokushin, as in most karate systems, katas are longer sequences of techniques, often simulating a combat scenario and demonstrating how movements, strikes, and defenses can be used together. The main purpose of kata is to teach the bunkai, or practical application of the movement. Katas are usually performed individually, and they allow the student to really break down and understand the concepts of the material. Now, Kyokushin also has a distinct organization to their katas. The majority of Kyokushin katas are grouped into one of two main categories, Northern style and Southern style. Masoyama studied many arts and drew from many influences, particularly from Shotokan and Goju-ryu karate. In the Northern style katas, they are derived from the Shurite tradition of karate, drawn from Shotokan. Oyama had spent a lot of time studying under Gichin Funakoshi, the founder of the art. Southern style katas are based on the influence of Nahate traditions, while Oyama was studying and practicing Goju-ryu karate. You can often see and find similarities between Kyokushin katas and katas from other systems, as many of them share the same roots. There are also some katas dedicated to weapon usage, but even more interesting are the ura katas. Ura katas are katas that are performed in mirror image. They are also sometimes called reverse katas, and they were formed by Masoyama to aid the student in performing circular techniques, sometimes spinning, turning, or moving forwards or backwards. It also prompts some coordination adjustments. If any of you out there practice a martial art and you have a kata perfectly memorized, try to perform it in mirror image and see if you can do it just as easily. Definitely a great training concept and a distinct part of Kyokushin kata training. Then we come to kumite, or freestyle sparring or fighting. Kumite is where Kyokushin really shines in the public eye. Kihon and kata are important to learn and develop concepts and skills, and kumite is where they are put into play. In a teaching setting, freestyle fighting is used to learn how to fight an opponent or how to adapt to a live situation and change your technique based on the scenario. Sometimes kumite can be simplified and broken down into variations, such as ippon kumite or one-step sparring. This is when an individual practices the reaction by responding to an attack thrown by an opponent. There's also sanbon kumite, or three-step sparring. This is very similar, except that instead of just one step, it's done in the sequence of 3 counts. Kyokushin is a no-nonsense style of karate, and you can clearly see it in their competition. Full-powered body blows and devastating kicks are a staple in the tournament scene. Kyokushin tournaments are usually continuous fighting, and they're not point-based. The idea is get your opponent to submit by delivering rapid full-power strikes, or by knocking them out with a well-placed technique. It is not for the casual tournament participant or the faint of heart. And it's not uncommon to see opponents exiting the ring covered in blood, either theirs or their opponents. Kyokushin is also known for feats of strength, breaking bricks, rocks, baseball bats, even roofing tiles. Now, we did a video a while back about rebreakable boards for training, and we mentioned that they also made rebreakable bricks. As we looked a little bit further, we discovered there's also rebreakable tiles, so those might be perfect training tools for those in Kyokushin or those who want to train how to break tiles. So if you are interested, we have a link below in the description. Earning the black belt in Kyokushin is an incredible achievement. A student will go through a gauntlet of hard and rigorous training, rough conditioning, and a test of mental strength. I have spoken with some of you out there who have tested for a Kyokushin black belt, and after hearing what you went through to get it, you have my serious respect. Testing is often done twice a year, typically in winter and summer. Many schools will do testing camps, and the test itself is a gauntlet, usually spread out over the course of several days, 6 to 8 hours or even more a day of exercises, condition, fighting, drills, katas, more exercises, more drills, etc. Much of the test occurs outdoors in the elements, which can add a great degree of difficulty if you're somewhere where it snows or if you're in an extremely hot environment. In the spirit of Masuyama's 100-man kumite, tests often have abbreviated versions of this, with belt candidates having to compete against 20, 30, or 40-man or more kumites. Now that's 40 rounds of full contact continuous sparring, non-stop, lasting 1.5 to 2 minutes per round. Again, my serious respect to anyone out there who has completed that test. For more information on Masuyama and Kyokushin, I have listed some references below in the description. And as before, I wanted to extend my utmost sincerest gratitude to one of our viewers, friend and Kyokushin martial artist, Sensei Juan Ferentino Iorio from Melbourne, Australia, for his help in creating this project. Your generosity and efforts are greatly appreciated. That concludes today's episode on the history of Kyokushin. Next week, and the third and final part of the series, we're going to take a look at the impact of the art and the derivatives of it. Thank you so much for watching. Those of you with any experience in the art of Kyokushin already know about the actor Dolph Lundgren and his dedication to the art. But if you were like me, someone who only knew broad strokes about it before researching it, it was quite a nice surprise to see such a high-profile actor with such a clear-cut and deep dedication to the art. I'm going to be referring to the Kyokushin Academy website. They've done a profile on Dolph Lundgren and other practitioners, so I do recommend checking them out. Dolph Lundgren was born in 1957 in Stockholm, Sweden. He trained in judo at the age of 16 and then about a year later switched to training in the Goju-Ryu karate. The power of Kyokushin caught his eye and he joined the art training under 4th Dan Brian Fitkin. Dolph Lundgren started his tournament career at the age of 19, and even though he took a loss in 4 of his first 5-point fighting matches, he was invited to fight in the 2nd World Open Karate Tournament in Tokyo in 1979 while still serving in the Swedish Marine Corps. It was his first full contact tournament, and according to Kyokushin Academy, the competition was for brown belts and higher, and having only been a green belt at the time, he had to borrow a brown belt in order to compete. He began to turn some heads when he won his first 2 matches by delivering knockouts via knee strikes to the face. He met a more substantial adversary in Makoto Nakamura as they fought for the world title. Nakamura was pegged as the favorite, but Lundgren proved to be able to go toe-to-toe with some early powerful blows. The fight went the full distance, with Nakamura winning by a close controversial decision. Dolph took home a few more titles, winning the BKK British Open Knockdown Heavyweight title in 1980 and 81, as well as a champion in the Australian Open in 1982. Despite playing the lumbering jock or meathead type characters in his films, Dolph went back to school and completed a master's degree in chemical engineering when he attended college at Sydney University. For a time, he also taught at his own karate club. As he was training for the World Open in Gleason's gym in New York, he was working on the heavy bag and he caught the eye of several managers that were there and that noticed how well he could move. This earned him an audition for the role of Ivan Drago, facing off Sylvester Stallone in Rocky IV. Since then, Dolph's career took off. He has continued his Kyokushin training, including exhibitions and world tournaments, and also in 1998 he achieved his 3rd Dan after a 3-hour technical test and 20-man kumite. He now holds the rank of 4th Dan and often works with the Spanish Kyokushin Federation in Spain, where he and his family own a home. The general moviegoer may know Dolph for his roles such as Ivan Drago or even The Punisher, but for those in the art of Kyokushin, he is known as a dynamic athlete and dedicated martial artist. No-nonsense karate system founded in 1964 by Sosai Matsutatsu Oyama. Now this is the 3rd and final episode of the set. If you have not seen parts 1 and 2, I highly encourage you do so because they include a lot of backstory on the development and curriculum of the art. In today's episode, we're going to wrap things up and see where Kyokushin is today, from the politics that occurred when Masuyama passed away to impact on media and the tournament scene. So once again, Japanese is not my first language, so I do apologize if I mispronounce any words. I'm going to do my very best. Now, to briefly recap our first two episodes, we explored the life of Sosai Masutatsu Oyama and his rigorous training in the martial arts. Knowing from an early age that the martial arts were his destined path, he dedicated his full effort to becoming one of the toughest fighters known in karate history. He began training in Chinese and Korean Kempo, and then later became proficient in boxing, judo, earning the 4th Dan black belt, Shotokan, earning the 4th Dan black belt, Goju-ryu, where he also earned a 7th Dan black belt, and he eventually became a 10th Dan in his own system of Kyokushin. Oyama was as tough as they come, spending a collective 32 months training in the Japanese mountains in solitude and establishing the 100-man kumite, a harsh battle of endurance in which a challenger enters a freestyle, bare-knuckle, full-contact sparring session for 100 consecutive rounds. And that's each round lasting 1.5 to 2 minutes. Now, Masayama himself completed this challenge 3 days in a row, competing in and emerging victorious in 300 kumite matches. Now, this helped Kyokushin garner a lot of respect and attention. To this day, the 100-man kumite challenge still exists and has been performed and completed by only a handful of people. As an example of the hard work required to complete the 100-man kumite challenge, I highly recommend checking out 100-man fight on YouTube, and I have included the link in the description. This video documents the challenge undertaken by Kyokushin champion Shihan Judd-Reid, who completed the 100-man kumite in 2011. This documentary gives a great insight into his karate training as a teenager, his time as an uchideshi, or live-in student, under the direct training of Masayama himself, and his full commitment to the challenge. If Kyokushin means ultimate truth, then Shihan Judd-Reid is a true embodiment of the meaning, becoming one of only a few who have completed the challenge. I also recommend Shihan's book, The Young Lions, which documents his 1,000 days learning under a karate legend. You can find that link in the description as well. The kumite rules in Kyokushin are usually unpadded, though sometimes protective headgear may be used by some organizations. Punches to the head, face, and neck are usually prohibited. However, strikes to the body, such as kicks, punches, elbows, knees, are all fair game. Even kicks to the head are usually allowed. Its influence can be seen in other arts as well, and is considered one of the first leaders in the competition of knockdown karate. Many styles that began in Kyokushin and branched off to their own organizations continue the tradition, and many other arts have also drawn influence and compete with the same format. Masayama went up the mountain to become one of the best martial artists, and he came down a leader and a pioneer. Unfortunately, as with many martial arts systems, Kyokushin is not without its politics. As I've said in many previous videos, the purpose of this channel is not to get too political or take any sides, but rather offer an objective view and overview of some scenarios. Now, while I have not experienced the depths of Kyokushin politics firsthand, I know many of our viewers have. So we're going to take a quick overview of generally what happened within the Kyokushin community in a world without Oyama. Masayama passed away at the age of 70 in 1994. What is very unfortunate to the art is that he did not appoint a successor to take his place and lead the IKO, or International Karate Organization. In his absence, he left a power vacuum in which many senior students sought to take the reins and lead. Now, this part I can relate to. In my own art of American Kempo, Grandmaster Ed Parker passed away and similarly left no appointed leader, which resulted in Kempo splitting apart into multiple factions and a wide array of organizations that still continue to splinter and divide today. Now, division and independence isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it often comes with bad blood, animosity, and conflicting egos, and when that happens, it can become toxic, regardless of what art it occurs in. In Masayama's passing, Kyokushin was left without an established leader. Some claimed to be the rightful leader, and they all sought to take over the IKO, while others decided to branch off to their own organizations and just name themselves the head of their own groups. When this happened, any organization that laid claim to the name International Karate Organization, they were known by the Kyokushin community by either a number, such as IKO 1, IKO 2, and so on, or sometimes by the name of the head official. Shokei Matsui was born on January 15, 1963, and he began to train in Kyokushin at the age of 13. He quickly took to the art, and he became highly proficient in it, and achieved the rank of first dan after only a year. He then went on to earn many placements in tournaments, including first place in the All Japan Open Karate Championships in 1985, 86, and in 1987, he won the 4th World Open Karate Tournament, becoming the youngest competitor ever to become champion in the event. He also completed Oyama's 100-man kumite in 1986 as 4th dan, and his achievements and skills were noticed by Oyama himself. He opened his own school in 1992 in Tokyo, and he was later promoted to branch chief by Oyama. In addition to his martial arts skill, he had a shared Korean ethnicity with Oyama. Now, here's where the controversy comes in. Upon Masuyama's death, the community looked for a new leader. Events that followed have been debated, but some say that Oyama had wanted to appoint Matsui as the new head of the IKO. Oyama's family and Matsui himself dispute this, but it has also been said that his name may have been mentioned in Oyama's will. Matsui was reportedly surprised that he was considered, and this caused a major rift among the Kyokushin community. Many senior officials felt disgruntled and insulted that such a young leader was appointed before them. Many of them decided to break off and form their own organizations. IKO 2 was originally established by Yukio Nishida, but leadership has since changed hands, with the current leader being Midori Kenji, a champion of the World Tournament himself, and he renamed the organization to the World Karate Organization Shin Kyokushin Kai. Now, we could spend an entire video series exploring each of these organizations in depth as they continue to splinter further, with IKO 3, IKO 4, and so on. For more information on these organizations, there is a link below in the description. Now, these are all the Japanese-based organizations operating within the name International Karate Organization. A few other Japanese organizations, such as the WKO, branched off as well, and also there's many non-Japanese groups. It is unfortunate and sad to see such a state of disagreement and break in the martial arts community. I'd be really curious to know any viewpoints from our viewers on the topic. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there and with a lot of perspectives, so please feel free to discuss in the comments below. I just ask that you keep it civil. There are many styles of karate that exist today that have branched off of Kyokushin, much like Kyokushin is derived from many other arts itself. We couldn't possibly list them all here, but these are just some of the larger ones that are pretty well known. Ashihara Kaiken Karate. In 1980, Hideyuki Ashihara, a former Kyokushin karate student of Masutatsu Oyama, branched off on his own. In doing so, he established his own style of karate, calling it the New International Karate Organization Ashihara Kaiken Karate. At his new organization, he established himself as the head with its world headquarters in Matsuyama City, Japan. Saido Kaiken Karate is yet another style that finds its origins within Kyokushin Karate. It was developed and established by Kazuyoshi Ishii, a former practitioner of Kyokushin Karate, under the formerly mentioned founder of Ashihara Karate. This style was also established in 1980 with its headquarters in Osaka, Japan, with Kazuyoshi Ishii himself as head of his own organization. He is also famous for establishing the world-famous K1 World Grand Prix kickboxing circuit, where all styles of stand-up fighting could compete under a single unified semi-Muay Thai, essentially Kyokushin Karate fighting rules with boxing gloves. As such, all stand-up fighting arts of karate, kickboxing, Muay Thai, it also included Kung Fu, Kempo, Taekwondo, as well as boxing, all eligible to compete. Daido Juko Karate, today more commonly known by its abbreviated name as Kudo, is a style that emerged from Kyokushin Karate as well. It was founded by Takashi Azuma as its leader in 1981. Now, he is a former karate student as well as a Judo third dan black belt. What makes this style interesting and unique is that it actually combines the striking elements of Kyokushin Karate, but also adds the throws, submissions, restraints, joint locks, strangleholds, and the ground fighting of Judo. It could be referred to as a mixed martial art with the karate gi, along with gloves and protective headgear. Kudo is currently being practiced in 52 countries in the world, with Russia as its largest representative. Enshin Kaiken Karate is once again a style of full contact karate that was created by Joko Ninomiya, again a former Kyokushin practitioner as well as a former student of Ashihara. Enshin Karate, with its lineage both an origin of Kyokushin and Ashihara Karate, became a style in its own right, with its world headquarters in Denver, Colorado, USA. It is typically a full contact style of stand-up fighting with striking techniques of Kyokushin, punches, knees, kicks, elbows, leg sweeps, as well as numerous grabs and throws associated with Judo. There are many schools that have roots in Kyokushin, which just goes to show you how influential the style really is. In a related note, recently in the news, there was an incident in North Carolina in which a large man attempted to kidnap a woman. Now, he tried to grab her and pull her into his car. She was able to escape and she ran for help and sought refuge inside a local karate school. The man decided to go in after her. Now, the dojo staff quickly realized that he didn't belong as the woman pleaded for help and the man insisted. The instructor then asked him to leave, and after some words, he was able to get the man outside, but once they were outside, the man attacked him. The assailant was then taken to the hospital with injuries. So when I first heard about the story, I was immediately curious as to what style the school was. And the article mentioned it was a Bushiken Karate Charlotte Dojo. Now, I was not familiar with Bushiken, so I looked up the school's website, and sure enough, it is a Kyokushin spin-off. No wonder he went to the hospital. So it's really amazing to sometimes see just how far and wide the influences of a martial art can spread and grow over time. Kyokushin also has a very strong presence in media and entertainment. Many notable movie stars such as Dolph Lundgren and Michael Jai White are practitioners of the art. Several years ago, the Discovery Channel had a show called Fight Quest, in which two martial artists would tour around the world and they would spend 2 weeks in a new location. They would work in a dojo, they would learn the art, discover their culture, and then they would compete in a short competition to kind of test what they learned. It was a really fascinating show, and one of their best episodes, in my opinion, was the one on Kyokushin. It was a really good one, and I recommend looking it up on YouTube. Kyokushin can even be found in many video games. For example, one of the characters in the Tekken fighting series has a Kyokushin background and can even be spotted performing katas during demonstration modes of the game. It is also said that the characters of Ken and Ryu in Street Fighter use Kyokushin techniques, but I'd be curious to hear from viewers if you agree with that or not. Additionally, there's a relatively new game called Karate Master Knockdown Blow that, despite the odd name, is clearly based and inspired by Kyokushin. And that concludes our series on the history of Kyokushin Karate. I really hope you all enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed learning about it. This is such an incredibly durable art that offers a little bit of everything. It has roots in traditional Okinawan and Japanese arts. It has powerful strikes, speed, incredible conditioning, and endurance. It has the practical application of real combat, and it has a very strong sense of respect, discipline, and family. Mas Oyama sought to become one of the best martial artists in the world, and he ended up establishing a powerful and ever-growing foundation for many generations yet to come. If you are still interested in more information about Mas Oyama or Kyokushin, I have listed several references below in the description. And once again, in closing, I would like to thank Sensei Juan Ferentino Iorio for his help and assistance in putting this project together. Os. Another actor I like is Michael Jai White, and he's had some fun and badass roles over the years. For example, he played the title character of Spawn in the 1997 live-action film, the Cyborg in Universal Soldier 2, the mobster Gamble from The Dark Knight, Mike Tyson in HBO's 1995 biopic, and he even played the role of Major Jackson Briggs in the Mortal Kombat Legacy web show. On the screen, we can see an imposing sense of his combat, but in real life, we can see his dedication comes from his experience and training in Kyokushin Karate. Michael Jai White is a man with a lot of martial arts experience. He started training at the age of 7, and he's trained in at least 8 different martial arts and currently holds a black belt in 7 of them. He has experience in Goju-Ryu, Taekwondo, BJJ, Wushu, Tang Soo Do, Kobudo, Shotokan, and Kyokushin, which Kyokushin became his primary focus of dedication. I would like to reference an article on Michael Jai White from Black Belt Magazine. White has been a lifelong martial artist and part of the Victory Dojo and fitness family. He called the art his savior. I had a lot of angst growing up, and martial arts just felt natural to me, he said. I enjoyed fighting when I was a kid, and I used every excuse I could to fight. Our school is very basic and traditional. The way we train is the way we've trained in Japan for the past 50 years. White still spends a lot of time at the dojo, trying to mold Victory Dojo and Fitness into a school that will continue to provide to use as it has for him. When he's not working, he can be found at the school teaching clinics and techniques and weapons. Discipline has helped me in all facets of my life, he said. You can pretty much do anything if you have discipline. When you push yourself, you realize you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. I'm not a celebrity at my school. That quickly goes out the window when you're sweating together. It's more about the fact that I'm a 230-pound guy who hits hard, and I think that supersedes celebrity. If you're trying your best, if you're pushing yourself, I don't care if you're athletically gifted or not. It's the effort you put out, he said. As long as you do that, I have respect for you. I personally enjoy seeing Michael Jai White on film, especially in scenes and in movies that let him showcase his martial arts skill set. This includes the direct-to-video films Never Back Down 2 and 3, in which he both starred in and directed. And in one particular sequence, he's actually kind of in his mindset, remembering kata moves and applying them in the fight. So it's kind of interesting to see a movie approach the topic of kata application in a fight. I think it's great to see celebrities who have gotten so much from the martial arts wanting to showcase it and bring attention to their art, and then also carry that torch and pass it on to the next generation and dedicate themselves to teaching as well. That is the mark of a truly